Good morning, everybody. You know, I probably introduced Phoebe Brown more than anybody else in this congregation simply because she's such an inspiration to me. Uh-oh, you got that? Uh-oh, he's coming towards me again, Luck. Anyway, 3 or 4 weeks ago, she called me and said she was going into the hospital because she had a bit of cancer and she had to undergo surgery. And 3 weeks ago, they got it all, and she's back here just doing wonderful. 94 years old. That's right. Now, the reason I bring her up and the reason I bring Graham up, they're both 94 years old, but I think they're an inspiration to us that we can do what they've done. We can live a healthy life for many, many more years than what was average 50 years ago, and still be spry and mentally alert and do things. And my hat goes off to both of you for being an inspiration, not only to me, but to everybody here. I have some books here. We have the Bhagavad Gita, that is a holy book of Hinduism. Some people say it goes back 10,000 years. I have the Torah, the Jewish holy book. I have the Tao Te Ching, the Taoist holy book from China. I have the Dhammapada, the Buddhist holy book. I have the Bible, New Testament. And I've got the Quran, the Muslim holy book. Hundreds of thousands of words written over thousands and thousands of years. It's the ancient wisdom from some of the major religions around the world. But we could take these books, each individually and collectively, condense them down to one simple 10-word statement. Other than the cultural references, everything else is commentary. And that 10-word statement is, do unto other people what you'd have them do unto you. We know it as the golden rule. If everybody did that, think of how our world would be. It's a simple practice. If everybody in the world did that on a daily basis, think of the world that we live in. Now, I know you're thinking, no way, not possible. It's never going to happen. Maybe, maybe not. But if we as a human species can spend trillions and trillions of dollars and millions of brain power hours on figuring out ways to defeat each other, what would happen if we spent that same amount of money and that same amount of brain power on learning how to live in peace with each other in loving kindness? It's possible. But forget about everybody else for now and just think about you and your life. What would your life be like if you treated everybody the way you want to be treated? Think about it. Now, I know that most of us here, or all of us here, we treat people the way we want to be treated most of the time. But what if we did it all the time to everybody? Think of the difference in your life. I put forth the challenge that for the month of May, each of us attempt to do that. We attempt to go out into the world and treat everybody the way we would like to be treated. And to help you do that, I'm going to give you a little hint that'll make it easier for you. Back in the 1940s, there were 2 inventions. They were marvelous inventions. They changed the way we live. The first was a scientist was trying to discover a new way to refrigerate various things, and he came up with a concoction that didn't work for a refrigerant, but it did have some very peculiar characteristics in that when it hardened, nothing could stick to it. And so they named it Teflon, and it changed the way many people cook. Around that same time, a fellow came in, a scientist, from walking in the fields, and he noticed that his pants were covered with cockleburrs. So So he took one and he put it under a microscope, and he realized that the cockleburs had little hooks in them, and that would allow them to stick to material. So he developed Velcro. Now, why is this important to us? Teflon and Velcro. Well, I'll tell you why, because our minds are exactly the same way. We have a Velcro mind, we have a Teflon mind. Sometimes things slip our minds, the Teflon side of it, and sometimes things stick to our mind, the Velcro side of it. Now, I can tell you, 10 years ago, when somebody was outraged with me and they told me they hated me, I can tell you who it was, where it was, and exactly when it was. There's a Velcro moment for me. Now, over the last 10 years, I've been told that I'm loved hundreds of times. But if I was to recall somebody telling me that they loved me a year or so ago, I really couldn't tell you who, when, or where. And I'm sure it's the same with many of you. If somebody treated you with resentment, if someone was angry and they yelled at you, if somebody criticized you or condemned you in any way, you remember that's a Teflon moment, a Velcro moment, that stuck to your mind. You remember that time, the person, where you were, and why it happened. At the same time, you've probably had thousands of compliments, thousands of expressions of love towards you over the last 10, 15, 20 years. Yet it's kind of hard to recall exactly who, when, and where. Now, the point I'm making is, in practicing the golden rule, we have to flip-flop that. We have to change our Velcro mind from letting things stick that strengthen us, that empower us, that express love to us, that feel good. Those are the things we want to stick to our mind, and everything else that discounts us, depreciates us, condemns us, or criticizes us, that's a Teflon moment. We want it to slip right off our mind. We just need to reverse that process. And the most difficult thing about practicing the golden rule is when we find ourselves in the presence of somebody who's extremely angry or resentful or attacking us with harsh words or discounting our very being, disrespectful. It's hard to respond back to them in a kind and loving way. The golden rule is actually an evolution of 4 different rules. The very first one is called the brass rule, and this was pre-Bible days. The brass rule is also called the brazen rule, and it's do whatever you want to do, disregard to the effects it has on other people. This is your world, you stomp through it, and don't worry about the effect that you have on other people. The second rule is the iron rule, and this comes from the Old Testament. It's an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. You hurt me, I'm going to hurt you back. You steal from me, I'm going to steal from you. You yell at me, I'm going to yell at you. Eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. We take this rule out to the extreme, and pretty soon, nobody has any teeth left. The third rule is the silver rule. And the silver rule is don't do to other people what you don't want done to yourself. Very, very simple. I don't want to get hurt. I'm not going to hurt somebody else. I don't want to be yelled at. I'm not going to yell at somebody else. Don't do to other people what you don't want done to yourself. Now, the golden rule takes that same basic premise but advances it. It says, do unto others what you want done unto yourself. Treat others with respect because you want to be respected. Speak nice to other people because you want to be spoken nicely to. Be kind to other people because you want other people to be kind to you. Now, do you see the difference between the silver rule and the golden rule? The silver rule is passive. It simply says, don't do bad. But the golden rule steps out and it says, do good. Now, if you look at the front page of your bulletin, we have all the various golden rules, or the evolution of the golden rule there. And as you can see, from the very beginning, it was all pretty much silver rule. Don't do to others what you don't want done to yourself, until we get down to Christianity, and Jesus came up and he elevated a notch. He said, just don't sit back and be passive. Step out and do good, help other people. And he introduced it with a story about a man that was going from Jericho to Jerusalem. And on his way, he was mugged. He was beaten up and robbed by a band of robbers. Well, it wasn't long until a priest came down the road. The priest saw the beaten man there. He moved to the other side of the road, and continued on. And then a religious leader came down the road, saw the beaten man there, moved to the other side of the road, and continued on. Now the priest and the religious leader followed the silver rule. They didn't do to the man what they wouldn't want done to themselves. They didn't rob him of whatever belongings he had left. They didn't kick him while he was down. They didn't yell at him because he was clogging up the road. They didn't do anything harmful to him. They just left him be. But then a man came down the road. He was a Samaritan. And in the Bible it says his heart went out to the man. And he went over and he helped the man up. He bandaged his wounds. He put him on his donkey, took him into town, found an inn, got him a bed, and bought him a meal. Because that's what he would want done to him if the situation were reversed. So the question comes up, and we all know people in our lives. We all know people who are angry, and all know people who are resentful. We all know people who are rude and insensitive, and their actions just kind of spew out all over the landscape of our lives. We all know people like that, so I'm asking the question, if a person speaks harshly, do they deserve to be responded to in a kind way? If a person is mean, does that person deserve to be responded to in a nice way? If a person is insensitive and disrespectful, is that person deserve to be responded to in a respectful, nice way? And the answer is yes. And I know that's difficult at times for us to do, but the answer is yes, because the only other option is to be drawn down to that dark, murky, hurtful, sorrowful place that they're in. And that just makes us feel worse. And there's always a chance, there's always the possibility that with a slight expression of kindness and understanding, we can lift them up just a little bit to see the light, that perhaps there's a better way for them to be. Julio Diaz was walking down the street, and he was confronted by a young kid with a knife. This was late at night. The kid said he wanted his wallet. Julio was afraid for his life, took out his wallet and gave it to the kid. As the kids turned around and started to leave, Julio said, "Wait a minute, you forgot something." The kid stopped and he looked at him. He thought it might be a trick or a trap of some sort, so he was very, very cautious. And Julio took off his jacket and said, "If you're going to be robbing people throughout the night, you're going to need to stay warm. Take my jacket." The kid looked confused. He still thought it was a trick or a trap. When Julio handed him his jacket, the kid said, "Why are you doing this?" And Julio said, "Come, let me buy you dinner, and I'll tell you why I'm doing this." They went to a restaurant, they had dinner. Julio told the kid all about his life, which was very, very good. The kid told Julio about his life, which wasn't very good. And Julio came to understand that this kid came from a broken home. He had nothing. He was scared. He was alone in the world. When they brought the bill, Julio, somewhat embarrassed, said, "I kind of forgot you stole my wallet. I can't pay for this meal." The kid gave him his wallet back. And then he started to take off the jacket and give it back to him. Julio says, "No, you keep that." The kid says, "Can I give you something in exchange?" Julio said, "Yes." The kid gave him the knife. He said, "I don't need this anymore." Now, what exactly happened there? What exactly did Julio do? Did he prevent the kid from going to prison someday? Maybe. Did he stop the kid from committing another robbery? Maybe. Did he stop the kid from getting killed in a robbery gone bad? Maybe. He made a simple gesture as, "Here, you took my money, take my jacket as well. That's my gift to you." And it transformed that kid's life. Now, we never know the effect of our actions. When we meet somebody out there on the street, whether it's a friend, a family, a neighbor, or whoever, we never know if they're in an angry mood, a resentful mood, an attacking mood, a mean mood. We never know what a nice gesture, a nice response is going to have on them.